If you're trying to figure out how much mortgage you can afford with your current salary, then this video is for you. I'm going to be breaking down exactly how much house people can afford who make an income of $50,000 a year, $100,000, and all the way up to $200,000. And then there's a few tricks that I'll share at the end that will make this super easy in the math, really easy for you to know exactly what you'll be able to afford. So stick around till the end. I'll teach you the one rule of thumb that you'll be able to do at home to know exactly what you and your house can buy for a home. What's going on, people of the world? It's Russ the Realtor here. I'm really excited to be bringing you guys this video. This is one that I get requested all the time, and probably the most asked question I get from when I meet new clients is, how much mortgage can I afford? And I'm going to be breaking down exactly the process that they use and some quick tricks that you can use right at home that can give you a great ballpark estimate on how much mortgage you can afford. And then at the very end, I'm going to be saving my secret tip that I share with clients on what they can do to actually save more money when they're getting a mortgage. So you're going to want to stick around for this. I also want to say that for each person, getting a mortgage is different. So your file is going to be completely different than my file and everyone else's. And so these are all just ballpark numbers to get you a rough estimate on what you can afford for a mortgage. And I'm going to be assuming a few things to make sure the math is a little bit easier. So first one, I'm going to be assuming that you do have good credit and that you don't have any debt currently. So these factors I'm going to be playing in, and they can totally change what you actually get a pre-approved for. I don't want you to listen to this video and then you go to your mortgage broker, hey, I was listening to that Russell Mortlock guy on YouTube and he was saying that this would be the case and how much I would be pre-approved for. 100% you want to go seek an actual mortgage professional, and what I'm sharing today is just going to give you a ballpark on what you can potentially afford. But crunching the numbers and going through your credit, all your bills and debts or student loans that you have play a major factor in what you can actually afford. Rule number one on mortgage lending is the 35% rule. This is mostly what lenders look at when they're doing their gross debt service ratio. It is around 35%. In some cases, some lenders, they might give you much higher, or you might be able to get much higher gross debt service ratio if you go to your bank. But the standard rule of thumb throughout the industry is around 35%. The next rule of thumb that's quite standard is 42% of total debt service. So this is any other student loans, monthly bills, car loans, whatever else you have that is debt tied to your name. You can have this number come out to 42%. So what does this mean? Let's do some simple math. If you're making $100,000 of gross income in your household, this can be you, this can be from your partner, but if you have $100,000 of income with a 35% gross debt service ratio, that means that you can afford a monthly payment of $2,916 a month. So as you're probably already figuring out, with the 35% to 42%, that means that you could potentially, if you went up to your maximum mortgage limit, could borrow 7% on top of this 35% of your mortgages. So all your other debt that you have has to fall in that 7% range. So sticking with the $100,000 income, that means that you could have a monthly expense of $583 to go to other debt from your personal income of someone making $100,000. So that would be a car payment. If it's around that $500 to $600 range, you'd still be able to afford a mortgage of around $2,900 each and every month. And just to keep the numbers all round so you know exactly what it looks like, this would average about $3,500 a month in total debt service ratio. Okay, so let's dive into, just like I promised at the start of this video, what someone with a $50,000 salary can actually afford for a mortgage. The other thing that I'm going to be assuming for here is that you do have a down payment. So I get this all the time is, yeah, I have a good job, I have good income, I have good credit, but they don't have down payment saved. They might not have enough for the closing costs for the type of home that they want to buy. So there's quite a few factors that play into actually buying a house that you want to make sure you seek out to a real estate professional on, who can totally advise you. And like I said, this video is just to get you in the ballpark. So someone who's making $50,000 salary a year means that you can typically mortgage up to $200,000 in mortgage. So if you had $50,000 saved, which would be 20% on $250,000 purchase. So you use the total mortgage amount that you're approved for, plus how much you have saved for down payment, and you also want to sprinkle in a few extra $1,000 for closing costs, or maybe some land transfer tax depending where state or province you live in. In this case, you can afford around $250,000 worth of home if you had $50,000 saved to down payment plus some closing costs. And on that $250,000 house purchase, that would equal about a monthly mortgage payment of $1,200 a month. Now let's transition to household income of $100,000 a year. This would mean that you can afford $400,000 worth of mortgage. And once again, I'm assuming that you potentially have 20% down saved. So if you have $100,000 in down payment, that means you could afford a home around $500,000 with $100,000 income annually. As we're going through all the salaries here, I bet you're able to figure out the little trick on the quick math that you can use from your household income to figure out how much mortgage you can actually borrow. But let's keep going on, and let's go to if you have a household income of $200,000. As we're going through the salaries here, I think you're probably going to be able to figure out the quick little number that you can use to times that by your annual income to figure out how much mortgage you can afford. But if you haven't quite figured it out, let's keep on going, and I'll tell you here in just a few moments. So now, the million-dollar question that I get asked all the time from clients is, how much money do I need to make each and every year in order to afford $1 million home? So let's crunch the numbers here. So basing off of what you need in order to purchase $1 million home, as soon as you get up into the $1 million mark and above, you have to put a minimum of 20% down. So in this scenario, I'm going to be assuming that you have $200,000 in down payment saved, plus a little extra for closing costs and land transfer tax. And this is totally depending on what province or state that you live in that's going to be applicable for closing costs and transfer tax. So in order for you to afford a $1 million home, you are going to need to make an annual income of $200,000 a year. So this could be you and your spouse combined make a total of $200,000 in gross income. That would mean that you can borrow or get a mortgage up to $800,000, and then with the $200,000 down payment, you can afford a $1 million home. This would also equate to about a monthly mortgage payment of $4,804 at a current interest rates. And the other thing that I want to mention in this video is that this is typically dependent to what's currently going on in the market. Interest rates change all the time, lending requirements change all the time, so make sure if you're watching this video in a few months from now, interest rates might have gone up or down. I don't have a crystal ball, I can't predict that, but make sure you seek an actual real estate professional who can tell you, hey, this is what type of rate you actually get, and this is the financing terms that you're able to use with your credit, your debt, and your income. And I'm hoping now that we've gone through the 3 examples of the annual salary that you figure out the quick trick, and that is 4 times your gross income is typically what you can afford in terms of mortgage. So you times that $100,000, that means that $400,000 of mortgage is what you can afford, and then whatever you have for down payment or closing costs, like if you had maybe only $50,000 saved, well, that means you can only buy a $450,000 home because you can still mortgage up to $400,000. That's the quick little tip that I give everyone here, and especially clients who are asking me to ballpark them on that, is 4 times your gross income if you have no debt is typically what you can mortgage. And now for my hidden little secret that I always want to share with clients. I know people typically, especially in my market, real estate is so expensive, so people are having to borrow up to their maximum. They have to get parents or co-signers in order to get a mortgage. But if you are able to use this rule of thumb, it's going to make sure that you actually can save for retirement. Because a lot of times, in most cases, and this doesn't sound very controversial coming from a real estate agent, buying a home can be the worst thing for some people, and it makes them mortgage poor, and they never ever get their head above water again because they're just paying mortgage payments, and because it's so expensive, they're not able to enjoy the lifestyle that they used to have, and they're making all these sacrifices, and it kind of makes them miserable because it brings down their quality of life. Yeah, you got the maximum amount of house that you could buy, but then it brings down your overall well-being because all your money you're making is going towards your mortgage, and you're not able to travel or have fun anymore. So if you use this little tip, it's going to be a game changer because it's also going to allow you to save for retirement. So what I typically tell people is you want to save 10% of your gross income for retirement. What's the easiest way to do it? A lot of times cutting all these extra expenses out of things that are minor spending and shopping can be really difficult, but something automatic like a mortgage payment makes it a little bit easier. So my rule of thumb is if you're approved up to a gross debt service ratio of 35%, why not buy a home that's in the 25% mark of what your guys' annual income is? That way you're actually going to be able to save 10% of your gross income, and you can put those in investments and put them in wherever you want and be able to still live the lifestyle you want because you're not maxing yourself out exactly on what you can afford for a mortgage. So going back to the example of what it would look like for a family that makes $100,000 a year in annual income if they only went up to 25% of their gross debt service. This would mean that your monthly payment would be around $2,083 a month is what you could afford, meaning that you could mortgage up to $350,000. So if you had that $100,000 still saved, you could buy a home around $450,000, which might seem really hard to do in a lot of markets. You can use that math for whatever salary that you're in. Is you just do 25% of your gross income, you divide that by 12, and that's the amount of monthly mortgage payment that's going to allow you to save 10% each and every year if you're able to automatically put those into investments. I know how crazy the real estate market is, and I deal with clients every single day that are struggling to afford homes, and I truly feel bad for everyone. And in a lot of cases, like I said, sometimes it's not the best for people to actually purchase a home, and it's better for them to rent or live with family if you're able to do that, or be a roommate until you're actually able and it's feasible and it's not breaking the bank in order for you to buy a home. And it's specific to every person's needs and goals and what you're trying to achieve. Just because your friends or other people in your family are buying homes and making those steps and you're not quite able to, don't feel bad. Just know that if you stick to the plan, you're definitely going to be able to in the future for home ownership. But if you're really interested in why that no one can afford a home anymore and why the costs have gone up so much, you're going to want to watch this video here where I outline exactly why people nowadays can't afford to purchase a home.